Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CineMajors podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matthew Huh.
And I'm your other host, James Altschul.
And this week we are going to be talking about a 1977 Japanese horror film known as House, which is very, very unique and very, very wild. But before we get into movie news, I just want to say that we just entered phase 3 where we live, and it was the first time we were able to go outside safely.
Yeah, very exciting. Lots of fun. And yeah, hopefully movie theaters open soon in, I guess, phase 4.
Yeah. I finally got to go back to half price books and pick up DVDs again, which was great.
Oh, really? Did you go in?
Yeah, they opened, and it's their stores as well, and they're doing a great job.
Sweet.
In terms of social distancing precautions and health and cleanliness and all that. So
it's good to hear.
Yeah. Speaking of getting back into business, regarding movie news, there is a new report that California is saying that film and television studios can resume work June 12th, which is next week. But filming will not be happening yet.
Interesting. So why... Meaning that office jobs can go back?
I think office
editing?
jobs, probably production companies, but not really filming those productions, if that makes sense. So, offices.
Well, yeah, so this is only in California, right?
Yeah, this is only California. I mean, California is where a good majority of shooting cinema and TV takes place. I know Atlanta is also a pretty big place now. But yeah, Hollywood is getting back in business, which is great. There's not really a whole lot to say, considering that productions will be starting. But I feel like this is a good step in the right direction, because for 3 months we've been basically in limbo. We've been doing nothing. Nothing's been getting done, and a lot of places are at risk now, especially with the rioting and all that too. But this looks like a optimistic look at what will be next to come, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to see studios coming back. Maybe this will help, editors maybe be able to finish movies that were almost done or had completed production but not post-production. So that will definitely help. Maybe we'll finally get to see a trailer for Bill and Ted 3.
I'm surprised that movie hasn't gotten pushed back. But as
yeah, I am too.
As happy as I am that that Hollywood was just coming back again, considering, according to this article that I have pulled up, they've lost an estimated $10 billion with just theaters closing, screening cancellations, and shutting down these productions. It seems a little early for them to get back up and running again, because Los Angeles specifically had a really high amount of COVID cases. And in the same article, they said in Los Angeles alone, there have been, as of this recording, 59,650 confirmed cases, with 4,500 deaths.
In the city alone?
In the city. In California, there's over 120,000. So, it was considered one of the big, COVID, not epicenters, but just areas that had a large amount of cases. So I'm kind of surprised that they're starting up again this soon. But I'm also happy that they're doing that. So...
Yeah. I wonder, because I believe Atlanta productions are resuming, right?
I think so, because Atlanta, like, I know the Southeast is kind of getting back again, because even like some theme parks around there have been reopening. I know Universal Orlando just reopened. Disney World's not reopening till July, I think. But
Right.
a lot of these attractions and I think productions are starting up again. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, they're not sure when filming is gonna resume.
I see. Well, hopefully sooner rather than later, but obviously with the precautions needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess should we talk about AMC then?
yeah. This is rather unfortunate
Yeah.
and disheartening to hear. Would you like to introduce this one?
Sure. So, bad news: AMC may not be able to survive the pandemic if they can't open, I believe, within like kind of the next few months or next month, right?
Yeah. I
They lost, I believe, was it $2 billion?
yeah, and I th- this is this is just really sad to hear, honestly, because AMC is probably my favorite theater chain, just because they have a lot of
I would agree with
they have a
that.
ton of locations. Their seats are probably the most comfortable out of all the movie theater chains I can think of. All those reclining leather seats, and they have great deals too. And it's I see why they. A part of me is not surprised, because theaters have not been making money for months now. And I think in this article from USA Today that says this, um, a spokesperson said that if they do reopen, a single case of COVID in one of the theaters could result in more closures, or like if a second wave happens, which some people have been talking about with all these places reopening. And they also said another reason just because of lack of films available, because all the studios pushed back their release dates. So
That is, yeah, it's really, it's sad. I'm a big fan of AMC as well. I have a lot of great memories
yeah, the Best Picture
just seeing movies
showcase.
there, even though, oh yeah, absolutely. That's actually how we kind of met.
Yeah,
Really,
that was great.
yeah. I saw Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That was my first like Star Wars movie in the theaters. Um, one of our short films screened at an AMC theater.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So lots of good memories with the company, even though it's kind of like a major corporation.
Yeah, I mean, this not even just like for movie theater chains, but even just like big store corporations have been, closing or filing for bankruptcy.
Right.
Like Nordstrom, I think is sort of dying. JCPenney filed for bankruptcy
Wow.
recently. I can't. Just so much stuff has been happening, and and some people are saying like this could be a sign of change. Like for years with like Amazon saying, buying your stuff online, you don't really have to leave your house, and with theaters in terms of like Netflix streaming services and all this, like some people are saying, what's the point of going to the theater then? So that could be another reason.
Right.
Obviously, we're big advocates of theater experiences, so we'll still support theaters.
Yeah.
Like I would much rather watch a movie in the movie theater than at home. But
Good.
not a lot of people believe that, unfortunately.
It has been interesting kind of chronicling this like development though, because I think This has been something that we have been talking about, I believe, since the beginning of this show.
Yeah, just because it's like some of the only major news.
Right. But, I mean, who knows what will happen? We've talked about maybe Amazon even buying AMC theaters.
Yeah. I mean, if they do that might be great, actually. Like, as much as it
might be, yeah.
Even though I think when we said this, like, we were like, does Amazon really need another corporation under its belt? But they could probably save this chain.
I definitely think so, yeah. Another thing is, I mean, yeah, like we were talking about earlier, the AMC near us basically just opened.
Yeah, not even 5 years ago, I think.
Not even, no. And I think actually just about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
A little over 5 years ago. Because the first major release that, I think Age of Ultron came out.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw the opening weekend. And
right.
I liked the theater more than the movie. But,
yeah.
but that's another story. And like, not just the one near us, like, there's so many great AMC like theaters itself. Like, I've been like there's one in Times Square, which I think you've been to, right? Is that where they screened your short?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there.
That's a great theater.
I went there once. It's great. There's one in downtown Chicago, which I think it's the River East, which is a really nice one.
Right. I don't think I've ever been there, but I've seen it. I know it exists.
Yeah, I forget what I saw there, but I remember the theater was very nice.
I think I was actually going to go see Star Wars again there.
I remember. I saw Pixels there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like a preview screening. At the time, I liked it just because I was into retro games, but looking back, I'm like, yeah, this movie's garbage.
Dang. Rest in peace. I don't know.
So yeah, I hope AMC can survive. I really do, just because it's a great chain.
Yeah.
And like, my problem is that if AMC goes out of business, and AMC is like the Amazon of movie theater chains. Like, they're the king. There's so many of them around. If most of them start to close,
right.
then what if like Regal follows suit? What if Marcus follows suit? Then what is there going to be left of for like major theater chains?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I guess I like small theaters as well.
Oh yeah,
but
like independent theaters.
There's
are
like
also great too.
There's a certain like feeling that you get when you go to see like a movie in like a chain theater.
It's like if it's like a big blockbuster, like seeing Endgame in an AMC theater or something like that.
That's an event,
Yeah.
You're
like independent theaters are.
'Cause you have to drive there to go see it.
Yeah, and independent theaters are just as great too. But it's almost like two different experiences. Like, you go to an independent theater mostly to see an independent film, like or a foreign film, like let's say I don't know, like The Assistant, for example, which is a great movie. But then you can also go to like AMC and see Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's two different types of movies that attract different types of people, but they deliver they both deliver
a different experience.
A different experience, but at the same time, it is sort of the same experience. Like, you are watching a movie, regardless if it's a $10,000 indie project or a $250 million summer blockbuster. You're still watching a movie with the crowd, with people that want to watch it, presumably, and that only adds to the fun of going to the movies, and that's why I like it so much. So if like a big chain like that can't survive, what does that mean for these smaller theaters then? Are they gonna survive? Like,
I mean, there has been lots of talk about how AMC was just that kind of a mismanaged company, and they didn't really take precautions to prepare for something like this.
Did
the
anyone prepare
coronavirus.
for something like this, though? At least to the extent?
Absolutely
I don't
not.
think anyone did. So why are people blaming
Why
a
is
movie
why
theater
AMC?
chain?
Well, I know they were having trouble with like debt or something. So
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. But
even though we love some of these major corporations, like we acknowledge that they are flawed. Like I love Disney, for example, but I'm gonna acknowledge that they have done some bad things financially,
for sure.
and also in order to like please their audiences too. Like they have done like not good things, but that's almost any corporation though. So there's always something
Right.
going on that's like wrong behind the scenes.
Yeah, I would equate like I feel like if AMC like goes out of business, it's kind of like if like Chipotle went out of business or something. Like I mean, you can get like a burrito somewhere else, you know, but you know,
It's not the
like
same.
you'll kind of like feel this what?
It's not the same.
It's not the same, no. I feel like it'll definitely be something I feel nostalgic about.
Yeah. I mean, people were feeling like nostalgic for like Toys R Us and stuff when they went out of business, but the irony is that they kind of came back too. So
Right.
I don't know. Maybe worst case scenario, AMC does go out of business. Maybe 20 years from now, it'll be reborn or something. It'll be greater than it used to be. Or
Yeah.
I don't know. Only time will tell, I guess.
True that. Next story?
Yeah, our next and final story, which is rather small, but I feel like I just wanted to talk about it real quick. Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary and Midsummer, his next film is supposedly supposed to be a 4-hour nightmare comedy, which that's literally all there is to it. And like it's called wait, what is it called? No, it's not called that. Yeah, there's no name currently, but it's just it's gonna be 4 hours long, and that excites me
Wow.
personally because I like this guy's work a lot. Have you seen Midsummer or Hereditary by any chance?
No, I've not seen any of his films, but I've heard a lot about them.
Yeah, his
A
film.
lot of people have like told me to see it.
Yeah,
Specifically Midsummer.
yeah, his film. Both of his films. Those are the only two films he's made, which I think is pretty amazing, actually, considering they're both fantastic. Like his films are very disturbing, and really get under your skin, but they're also like they're genuinely creepy and scary stories. Like I think my problem with most horror is that they're not scary or they feel cheap, but Ari Aster's work definitely feels like genuinely terrifying in a way. Like you're seeing something scary unfold before your eyes, and also it's set in a very realistic setting. It's like this realistic horror that is kind of unlike anything else you could see. Like Hereditary was one of my favorite films of 2018. Just for its like delivering such a terrifying experience, but also having really good characters, a really great story too, some incredible acting also. And Midsummer did the same. Now, granted, my problem with Midsummer is that I thought it was a little too long. So the fact that he's gonna make a 4-hour long movie
4 hours.
raises some questions. But I'm rather optimistic, and I like his stuff a lot. And another thing that's interesting is that his production company is teaming up with CJ Entertainment, who also funded Parasite, which
We're big fans of Parasite.
Yeah.
On this show. Yeah.
oh wait, that's a different film. Never mind. So the film he's directing has nothing to do with that, but his production company. So he's going to be a producer for this a remake of this, I guess, Korean film. So. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll have to check out Hereditary. I know it's on Amazon Prime.
I think Midsummer's on Amazon
Or
Prime.
at least it was.
As well.
Oh.
I think they're both on Prime.
Well, yeah. Get caught up.
Yep.
So speaking of horror,
Yeah, should we...
what do you say we talk about House?
Yeah, let's talk about House. So, spoilers for House. If you haven't seen it, you certainly must, because it is pretty freaking great. House was... It's as you said earlier, it's a horror film from 1977, directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi, who sadly just died like a few months ago, so rest in peace. And it tells the story of these 7 schoolgirls who travel to one of their friends' aunt's house in the countryside, and basically all these crazy things happen in the house. It takes the basic haunted house formula and puts it on steroids essentially, and I love it.
Yeah.
I've seen it a couple times. This was your first time seeing it, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of House?
I thought it was incredibly unique, pretty bold. I think I can honestly say I haven't really seen much quite like it.
Yeah, there's nothing like House. There really isn't.
Nah. It was very entertaining. I was interested the whole time. Some of the, I guess you can say some of the special effects, well, I guess we'll talk about it. Some of the special effects might be dated, but I found it kind of charming. And I was trying to figure out the whole time like how they did everything, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think House is it like we said, and I think that is the best way to describe this movie. It's unique because it is a horror film, but even then it's not really much of a horror because it balances so many genres in it and like kind of throws it into this melting pot of its own like identity. So, and I think I've
heard that when I rented this movie on Apple, it was actually listed as a comedy.
Oh, a comedy?
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, on IMDb it is labeled as a horror comedy, which is probably the best way to describe it. I'd say. And like, and one of the only times this happened to me, like I first heard about this movie through the Criterion Collection, which is probably the only real way you could get a physical copy of it. And the poster of it, which you should see right now if you're watching or listening, I guess, that's what drew me into the movie. And like there's very few movies that have drawn me into watching it just based on the cover or the poster, because it has like this creepy orange cat that's like staring into your soul almost, and it's like, well, I gotta watch that then. And I watched it. I'm like, that was insane, but that was awesome. So I recommended this to so many people. I did like a school like presentation assignment on this in like my creative writing class, like recommending this movie to people. I don't know if anyone watched it though, but yeah.
When did you first watch this movie?
I saw it about 2 years ago, I think, for the first time, because I saw it in the library and I had heard about it briefly. I think I saw the poster way before, but it took me a while to watch it for some reason, maybe just because I forgot about it. And yeah, I still remember to this day, I watched it and my jaw was like on the floor basically, because I was like, this is absolute madness and total insanity. And in most cases, I feel like if it gives me a reaction like that, it's either in a negative way or like in an ironic way, but this was in a genuine way, because I think the movie is very, very good, like story-wise, because it's almost like a parody of horror. Like it does not take itself seriously at all. It totally doesn't. It's constantly making fun of like the horror genre and other genres in general, and it has this really upbeat, playful tone. but it also has these really gruesome, violent kills
Death
and
scene,
like
yeah.
kind of creepy atmosphere at the same time. And I remember when I found out it was made in 1977, this came out the same year as the original Star Wars, which to me is
Yeah.
mind-boggling because the effects, which I guess we'll talk about later, and just the visual style is unlike anything I've ever seen. Like there, we've said this before. There's nothing like it. There really isn't.
Hmm.
Like I think maybe the best
I was
compare.
actually
Oh, you go.
well, I was thinking like while I was watching it, I mean, I was thinking a lot about um like various anime I've seen, because I think that's like the closest thing I've seen to it, you know,
Hmm.
would be something from anime uh like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just like crazy like transitions, effects, um like ways of shooting things, you know,
Yeah,
that you just like wouldn't really see anywhere else besides like an animated movie
I think
or like even a cartoon.
I think the best way, the best comparison I can make, and even then, this is incredibly loose. It's almost like an MTV music video or like an 80s
I could,
advert,
yeah.
which, because it has these really like incredibly fast and tight cuts, these wild images, these bright colors, and it kind of puts you in a trance, like you're on some sort of drug, and what you're imagining is like something that you see when you're like high or like on psychedelics.
Yeah.
But the great thing is that this predated like the MTV 80s sort of music video style, which
Right. So I just can't imagine that when this came out there wasn't really anything like this.
well
Um
well actually, just to bring up a little history, this movie, critics hated it, which does not surprise me at all, but the public
right.
loved it. Like the public thought this was like awesome just for delivering such a unique, wild experience. But then I think it was distributed by Toho, which also did Godzilla, which it was distributed
Right.
and produced by Toho. And they pulled it because they didn't want their studio to be associated with this type of filmmaking. And then it kind of,
Really?
yeah, which,
Wow.
because I think, I don't know, like how the higher ups at first thought of the movie, but then once it got into release, the public loved it, which I don't understand. But then they were like, okay, we're pulling this because we don't want the public to think we're going to be making these movies till the end of time. And then it kind of it went into obscurity, and then 30 plus years later it got rediscovered and now has this whole like cult following, which
Yeah.
I think is great. There's some merchandise of it. There's a T-shirt of the poster, which I have, which is
Yeah, your
yeah,
house
the
t-shirt.
house T-shirt. And I actually saw this in a theater too, which was fantastic. Last year at my college, they had a screening of it, and it was like a packed house. Like it was like Parasite. Every seat was filled, and you could sense the like the shock and sort of like awe of the audience, and they were laughing at all the right parts. It was like a party almost. It was one of my favorite theater experiences.
Sweet. This sounds like such a good movie. I would love to see this movie with the theater.
Or not even just in a theater audience. This is a movie that you just like. It's so much fun if you watch it with a crowd or like with a group of people, like because it adds another
Yeah.
level of enjoyment to it. I mean, you could have just as much enjoyment watching it by yourself as I did when before we did it for this review, but it's like it's another level when you watch it with people.
Yeah. So when you saw it in the theater, like how many times had you seen it at that point?
Well, so it was oh, how many times? I only saw it once because I bought the Blu-ray,
Uh
but for I think I wanted to try and show people this, but for whatever reason, like we'd either want to watch something else or nobody wanted to. I don't really know why.
uh
But then, like, because when I saw it at my college, it was like within the first month I was there, and it was one of the first times I went to this theater that I eventually became part of the college film board on. So I was like, I gotta see that. Like, no matter what, I just need to see this movie in this theater. And like, I already knew what was gonna happen in it, so it's kind of like when I went to go see Parasite multiple times. I was more like watching the audience as well as the movie at the same time, which only
Nice.
furthered my enjoyment. And yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add? I know I've been talking a lot, but
No, you're all good. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess we were talking about like watching it with people. I mean, I think it would be cool to watch this with people, and
it's a good Halloween movie.
Yeah. I don't know, like what I felt watching this was like I could tell this was something that's not for everyone, you know?
Yeah, it really isn't. And like there are problems with the movie, obviously, because it is very tongue-in-cheek. Like you have to know that
For sure.
the movie is not taking itself seriously. I think there's even a line where one of the girls say like, "Oh, it's like we're in a horror movie" or something.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is hilarious. But like some people are not really gonna get that like right away, at least, or maybe just don't know. Because you could get people wanting a genuinely spooky haunted house horror film, but then it's something that kind of makes fun of itself. That's the actual result. So it does have this like niche audience, but and like
That's the thing, like I feel like it's so great that this exists and that there is like a big enough audience for it, cuz I didn't really realize anything about the critical reception of this until, I obviously knew it was on the Criterion. It had a Criterion release.
yeah,
So I knew it had to have
value.
Some kind of yeah. And you had that really cool shirt of it.
Yeah,
So.
actually, I think the House Criterion was the first Criterion I bought, or one of the first ones, because it was like
Because it was on sale, right?
yeah, it was when I first heard about their 50% off sales. Which if you don't have any Criterions, that's the best time to get Criterions because they're freaking expensive. But I remember it's like I think I got that and Fantastic Mr. Fox because those were two movies I loved, and I was like, okay, this is the best copy.
Sweet.
Or like quality with all these great bonus features. So, yeah.
2 movies with orange covers.
We haven't. I just realized we haven't really talked about the content of the movie. We've just been talking about like other stuff related to it. So
Nah.
yeah.
Let's go through this movie.
Yeah. What I love so much is that, like I said, it's labeled as a horror film, but it's more of like this a hodgepodge of all these different genres, and they change it literally the flick of a switch. Because 1 minute it's a horror film, the other it's a comedy, the other it's like a soap opera almost. Especially the first like 10 minutes, like you wouldn't even think that you're watching a horror film. And then it even goes into like animation at some points, which like with the train too.
Right.
It's literally just like a cutout animation, almost like a smoother South Park. And there's even like stop motion with the guy who trips on the bucket, and like goes all over the place.
Now that I think of it, this actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Beetlejuice.
I have not seen Beetlejuice, actually. I know of it, but I don't...
Huh.
It does seem very Tim Burton.
I don't know. I think that movie...
Actually.
That movie came out in, like, 1989 or 8?
It came out in the 80s.
8 or 9.
But...
Yeah. But I don't know, like, I personally prefer this movie to Beetlejuice. But that's another thing, like, Beetlejuice is a Tim Burton movie, but there, went on to be several different Tim Burton movies kind of like that. This, I felt, just had a very unique style. And I don't know what else the director did.
Well, it's actually interesting. I was doing some research on this. This was his first film. but prior to that
Wow, really?
but prior to that he did adverts in Japan. So he knows how to like draw your attention, and also like with like quick cuts and crazy like editing and visuals, because that's what ads really are like, especially back then. It was giving you almost like a 30-second movie to draw you in and make you want to buy your product. House kind of does the same thing, except it's blown up to 90 minutes and it's not selling you anything. It's constantly like
Right.
drawing you in and giving you something totally crazy. But even if like everyone talks about the visuals and just sort of the insanity behind it, because there are some really crazy images in this movie, but I feel like there's also a really clever story behind it, because like I said, it's almost like a horror parody. You have these characters which don't even have names. They have their names are basically their characteristics, because you have Gorgeous, she's the pretty one, Prof, the smart one, Mac, she eats all the time, Fantasy, she's always like daydreaming, like Kung Fu, like, oh, what does she do? She fights, and she's very athletic, and
Yeah,
also like,
that's
and
really funny
Sweet,
to
who's
me.
just like the kind.
Melody.
Yeah, yeah, Melody, the musician. Like, there's not even real names for these
She gets
girls.
eaten by a piano.
Yeah, she's eaten by the piano, and uh,
Yeah.
Mac's head goes into the well and bites. I think it's Fantasy, I believe, and
Yeah.
because I feel like in a way, like I've seen videos just saying like, oh, this is the craziest thing you've ever seen. It just shows visuals of when like the animated scenes, the kills and all that, which is great. Like, that's one of the reasons why I recommend this film. But there's also the story behind it, which is also equally great.
Yeah.
And
I think the script is quite clever.
yeah, because it has a very, like, the haunted house plot is not new at all, even back then, because it's essentially a Scooby-Doo story when you break it down to its simplest form.
Heard described as that, yeah.
Yeah. And but combined with its unique style and its own unique storytelling, it feels one of a kind, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah. Should we talk about the visuals for a sec?
yeah, let's talk about the visuals, which
one thing that I found particularly interesting was I was paying attention to the sky a lot.
oh yeah, it's all like matte paintings.
It is all matte paintings, yeah.
Yeah, all the backgrounds.
And I was just like paying attention to how they did that. I think some of the sets were even like, straight up like stage plays with like a curtain in the back.
Yeah,
Or a mat.
Well, even like to me, one of the key examples is the in the opening scene in Gorgeous's house with her father. That literally looks like a stage play, like you said, with like the set design, the way the camera, even it kind of looks like a sitcom too. It kind of looks like Full House, or something.
Absolutely.
But then even when you get inside the house, it kind of looks like one of those like made for TV like Goosebumps type movies.
Yeah.
With like its set design, because most of the set design was all filmed on sound stages, and some parts of it look kind of cheap, but I think that's also part of the joke too. So,
right.
And some people would say like, oh, like I kind of feel this way too. They feel like, oh, if they say, excuse me, the sets are cheap, it's be like, oh, that's part of the joke, when it's really hiding the fact that they didn't have a lot of money. But I think in this movie it works just because
What was the budget for this movie?
I don't know. I'll try and find it if you want to talk about something else real quick.
Fair. But yeah, I feel like the cheap effects, like I said earlier, I find them very charming.
Yeah, and
all the green screen, like the floating heads, even like the way like I think there's like a part where a phone like gets knocked off
It like
the hook,
explodes.
or yeah, the phone like explodes,
Or
and
the
just
fingers,
the way that looks is
the fingers on the piano too.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
I,
like stuff like that, like I've never made like a home movie like horror film, but I've seen like I've heard a lot about like low budget horror, and I guess that's kind of what I'd imagine it to be like.
well, I couldn't find the budget, like how much it costs to make, but it does. I read countless times that the effects were meant to look fake and not look real, just because it's part of that joke.
Really?
Yeah, which to me,
That's very
which
interesting.
is very interesting because like it's like, oh, they're purposely meant to look unrealistic, which in a way they kind of do, but it is impressive. Like, to me, I think the best thing a movie can do in terms of effects is to make you wonder how they did it. And this, alongside the original Star Wars and probably Who Framed Roger Rabbit, are the only movies where I'm like, how did they pull off these effects? Because this was before computers, obviously. Like, there was no computer animation
Yeah.
or CG back then. But it was all in camera, basically. It was all like chroma keyed. And it looks
Right.
like amazing, especially for 1977. And like you could make
Yeah.
better things in Photoshop nowadays with technology that we have, but there's this charm
Sure.
to the effects in this movie, and still they're very impressive. Like, I still think the scene with I think it's when Kung Fu gets caught in the lampshade and is like flying around all over the place, and then it's like this seizure inducing like background with like the house
Yeah.
of like the floor and the walls, and like I think Prof and Fantasy are like on the bottom like looking at it, and it's obviously just a chroma key effect. Like, it's pretty simple to do that nowadays, but for the time it's really impressive. So
Yeah.
I think people need to look at the film with that mindset. It's like, yeah, the effects may look kind of crappy, but like, think about when it was made. Think about the resources that they had to pull it off, and the fact that it's so just like off the wall.
Yeah. Another thing I like is just like the random skeleton that shows up throughout it.
What was that?
There's like this skeleton. I can't tell if it's like a puppet.
Oh, the
or-
skeleton. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The dancing skeleton in the background.
Yeah, I just find that so funny.
Yeah,
that it just shows up like out of nowhere.
I know. Or even like the cat Blanche, I think is the cat's name, has like the green
Yeah.
eyes, like whenever like
The green eyes.
whenever it's about to go
Yeah.
down. And also like we mentioned, the piano scene, the piano eats melody and like, and her
Right.
body parts just get like like cut up, and the picture of the cat like spewing the blood which floods the house, and it turns into like this like river
Right.
of blood. And
then that's where the poster comes from.
yeah, that's where the poster came from, which is not the actual that's the Criterion poster. It's not the theatrical poster. I
can't imagine this having any other poster.
What was that?
Like, I think that's just so perfect. And that's interesting because I honestly like don't really like a lot of the Criterion posters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it's just a personal preference. Like for example, like for Rushmore, I feel like the original poster is way better than the Criterion one.
That's fair. But
Yeah.
I really like both posters. I think the theatrical poster is better, but I feel like that
Fair.
Criterion did a great job with that poster just because it draws you in. Because if they just did
Yeah.
a simple poster like that, I doubt anyone would be like, what is this? Like, no one's gonna like buy it unless you're a hardcore Japanese cult movie lover. But if you see that poster with the bright orange and the cat just staring at you, you're like, oh, I gotta see this movie. And then they give you one of the craziest things you'll ever see. And I still stand by that this is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen. Like, just
Yeah.
for what it does and for the visuals too. It's it's so like it has such a unique vision and look
Yeah.
that will probably never be matched. Because like if they remade this with like CG effects, it would not be the same at all. It really wouldn't. Even if you did like I don't know amazing bulk style effects, it would not match the
That's the
original
thing,
vision.
yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe it would in a different way, but
I don't know, man. Like that's what's so interesting to me, that you said that the effects were supposed to look cheap, because like I feel like there's a lot of kind of like movies that are ironically funny, like, you know, the effects in like Fateful Findings, for example, where
what are you talking about? Those
Neil
are
Breen just
A
like,
plus effects, bro.
oh yeah, 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 for sure.
Uh,
Like where like Neil Breen like disappears and stuff.
yeah,
It's like that's funny to us
yeah,
because
because it looks so.
we're used to like these
We're
giant,
spoiled basically is what we're trying to say.
yeah,
We're
because
spoiled by
we're
great effects.
spoiled with these great blockbuster effects. But yeah, I mean, as you said, Star Wars probably, I don't know when in 1977 this came out, but it's likely that the original Star Wars either just came out or hadn't come out at all. And that's so interesting.
What what I really like about the movie too, and we did touch about this, is that it whenever it seems like it's gonna go like too dark or like scare quote unquote scary, because the movie's not really scary just because it has like
No.
this really playful childish tone throughout the whole thing, and it's so jarring but so comforting at the same time. I love the music in this movie, the same
The
piano,
music? Oh,
even though
yeah,
it is
yeah.
incredibly repetitive. Like it's literally some of the only like music in the movie was just the opening dun 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 dun, like that plays throughout the whole thing, but it's so like relaxing. And
Right.
even like especially before they head into the house, when it like when they're at the school and they like introduces them, or no, it's not, it's after they get on the train, which that montage with that incredibly awesome song, which I cannot find anywhere for some reason, of them on the train. Then when they get out
Yeah.
and go to the house, and it does like the sort of sitcom thing where it has the characters looking at you with like their names on at the
Oh,
end, which
yeah.
is hilarious. And it just feels so joyful, even though there's these bloody kills and like people are dying.
Right. Huh. Yeah, you know, there's very, yeah, it's a lot like the way the girls interact with each other is definitely helps with that. And of course, like, I would say their reactions to the stuff going on. Like, it's not like obviously they're very freaked out, but it's like they just kind of scream, you know, and run, try to get
Yeah.
out of the situation. They don't like we don't really know these characters super well. So I guess we're not necessarily like fearing for their lives, but we still want to see what happens, and we still want to
Yeah,
see what happens
like
next.
Gorgeous does know her aunt, but like sort of hardly, and like
Right.
she hardly knows her, basically. And even though what I like is that yeah, when they realize this stuff's going, all this bad stuff's happening, they could easily escape, but then the house sort of like comes alive. Like it sort of goes against these
Yeah.
horror cliches while also being a cliched horror movie in joke at the same time, which to me is genius.
Yeah.
And like I love how they actually give a reason for like why it's happening. Because my problem with really cheesy horror films are like kind of like the Scooby Doo approach is that the villain or the threat just turns out to be complete BS, and it's just like someone was behind the whole thing. But in House, like her aunt actually has a reason. She traps these girls in the house, kills them, and eats them. Like, there's nothing more to say. Like, that's her motivation, and they don't try to throw in any like twist or like any like any other scenario to make you think that's like something greater. It is rather simple. Like, the movie as a whole is incredibly simple in terms of scares and horror.
That is another thing I really like, though, is the aunt's performance. Whoever plays the aunt, I feel like she just does a really good job of just kind of being creepy.
Yeah, or like,
but not
creepy, and also kind of like funny too, because like when we first see her, she's in the wheelchair, like the way she looks all of a sudden, the way she looks at the camera, but also like she just stands up and she's like, "You can walk now." And it's like, you've lifted my strength or something like that, or like you've given me life. I'm just like, and it's a thing like, wait,
where she jumps on the pole.
Wait, what was that? You cut out.
Where she just like jumps out of her chair and does like a backflip or something. Right?
Yeah. And then when she's crawling, like, she looks at the camera. I think we said that, but also then she bites into the human hand.
Right. I don't know. I feel like they, in that respect, they were definitely kind of respect their audience. The film, respects their audience.
It doesn't
like they.
It doesn't. It's not insulting to watch. It's not saying like, "Oh, you guys are dumb, so we're just gonna make this," like, in a way, sort of like middle finger towards you guys. No, it does treat its audience seriously, even though the film doesn't treat itself seriously. To me, it's sort of saying, like, the way I interpret it is that the film itself doesn't take itself seriously, so that the audience can realize that it's a joke. Which I find that funny.
Yeah. I guess one thing that's interesting to bring up is, like, I feel like this is definitely the kind of movie I would love to make someday.
To make?
And I've always thought that movies like this are just kind of like, they could never really have any like real value. And so, maybe it wouldn't really work out, but it's just like interesting to see this like materialized and then look at how bold it actually is. And I think it's inspiring in that regard.
Yeah, it does sort of inspire, like, I don't know if it's like nearly as inspiring as something like Clerks, just because Clerks was literally made by, like, show that anyone could make a movie, but it does show that this kind of creative spirit, so to say, even though this was backed by one of the major Japanese studios at the time, you could tell there was this amazing amount of creative control that really isn't seen a lot in studio films anymore. And it shows that, like, I guess if you have this like creative spirit, it could work in your favor.
And you can put anything you want on film.
What I really like is that you could tell that even if they said there wasn't effort put into the effects, there's still a ton of effort just put into the movie as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, and even in like the performances, which to me is even though it is one of the downfalls, because in my opinion, I don't think the performances are that great, but you could tell that
not necessarily.
Even if they're not like the greatest actors, you could tell they're trying still. Like, I don't see any of these girls as like not giving it 100%. Like, I could tell they're trying, but it's just like, still not great.
Yeah.
But so yeah, everyone had fun. I could tell, and it kind of adds to the fun of watching it, especially with these crazy moments and like the quote unquote action scenes where it's just a bunch of like disembodied body parts flying all over the place, and kung fu is just like going through doors and all this.
Yeah, I find that funny too. Like kung fu as a character, that she just like beats shit up, and you know, she does like backflips.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also find it really funny that fantasy, she's constantly daydreaming that like this teacher is gonna come and like save them, as if he's like a hero or something,
Right.
and like near the end there's like this one really just totally like not like crazy, or not crazy, just like out of nowhere moment where they're like waiting. I think it's when I think Kung Fu just died, and she's like, "Oh, Mr. Togo's gonna come back soon." She just like turns to her left, and there's like out of nowhere, this guy eating ramen just comes out and like eats right in her face. Cuts back to the guy at the actual shop, and like a bear is just sitting there for no reason. Like, what was that all about? But you accept it just because
like where the hell did that
come
come
where
from?
that come from? It's never explained. Like no
Right.
attention is given to it except for the one shot, but you buy it because it's creating this. The movie has so many moments like that up to that point. Like we mentioned, the guy with the bucket, for example, he trips and lands on a bucket,
Where,
and the
like,
bucket.
where did that
How do you
come
land
from?
square on the bucket, and how did the bucket just like move like that? Like if it's stop motion, which it is, and like go over the car, it's like it makes no sense. That's the whole point. You're supposed to just like laugh along with it, and to me, I find that hilarious. And some people just like, oh well, if there's something that is just making you laugh, then there's really no like meaning or context behind it. But comedy is also in just, to me, sort of absurdity, which could be a controversial comment, just because some people don't like absurd comedy or out of context comedy. But to me, this is hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not for everyone, but you know what? Nobody ever said you can't like a movie.
Yeah, no, nobody said that.
Yeah.
Um,
And with that said,
is there anything else we have? Is there anything else we could say about House?
well, I really like that one scene where she's like playing the piano and like some of the keys are lighting up. I thought that was a cool effect.
Wait, which one again?
The scene where the Melody is playing the piano and some of the keys are like lighting up.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
good. Like visually, it's just it is a pretty movie. Like it's very colorful and like full of like life and energy. Like especially in the matte paintings. Like the matte paintings are really, really something like to see.
Yeah.
Like I really like the train station matte painting near the beginning of the movie for some reason. Like even though you could obviously tell they're
where it's not a real train station, right?
Yeah, like you could tell they're matte paintings. They're not even trying to hide it, but they're still very nice looking matte paintings that someone put in a lot of time to like draw or like paint, I guess I should say. And
Right. It's cool.
I guess if there's another problem I guess I have with this is that like some of the pacing is really off, but it has like that good build up, much like any great horror film does. It builds up to that terror. And even when you're
I can see it, yeah.
but the great thing is that it doesn't save all the crazy parts like for the very, very end. It kind of like cuts back and forth. It's like just when you're about to like lose interest or something like that, like they give you something crazy, then they cut back to reality and they give you something else. So you're like getting a taste of everything, and it builds up to the climax, which is totally off the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The like this movie is also what I was thinking about when you were talking about that the 4 hour horror movie. Is this movie's only an hour and a half?
It's less than an hour and a half technically. It's 88 minutes.
Oh, it's 127.
It's 128.
Hour and
so
27. Oh, okay, fine.
It's barely under, but it is basically an hour and a half.
Yeah. Which I think is cool. It's concise, but it really gets like a strong point across. Like I think it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it doesn't have like a deep message to say, but it it leaves an impression on you.
Yeah. And I like that with horror movies. Like, I like it when you can get a horror movie that clearly doesn't take itself seriously and is more of a parody. And some of them don't really work too well. Like, I don't know, it's one I can think of off the top of my head. Like,
Scary Movie.
I haven't seen Scary Movie, but actually one, I know a lot of people like this, but like Cabin in the Woods, for example, like, to me, I just find it incredibly mediocre and not really funny. But like, to me, it is a horror film, but at the same time it's not. It's not taking, like exactly what you said, it's not taking itself seriously as a horror film, but it still delivers horror elements and has like quote unquote creepy moments and atmosphere, and also like gruesome violence, to quote unquote gruesome violence, because it's still very stylized.
Yeah. So should we give our final thoughts on this?
Yeah. What did you think of House?
All right. Well, House was definitely one of the most unique movies I've seen this year, certainly. I think personally, as someone who, obviously we're kind of making a movie vaguely like this, I would say.
Yeah.
So it was so interesting to see it like materialized on like in an actual movie. This was really not what I was expecting when I hit play. But it's great. It's set in late 70s Japan with some really great music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great way to spend an hour and a half. And it's a great movie to watch. So I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah. Well, honestly, this is one of my favorite horror films just because it's so unique, and even it's kind of in its own genre, like because there's nothing else like it. There really is not anything like it, and probably there's never going to be anything like it, because like I love the visual style, the effects. I like the story, and it has this really. It's a movie that you want to watch in a crowd because it only adds to your experience in a way, sort of like those like cheesy B movies do, and like. Yeah, like you said, it has great music too, and it's a horror film that doesn't take itself seriously, while also delivers while also being a horror film. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Sweet. So that's a good rating. So yeah, with that said, thank you for listening to this episode of the CineMajors podcast. Please join us next week where we will be doing, I guess, a double feature review of the 1980s Tron and 2011's Tron Legacy. And we will be bringing a special guest on the show ideally, if he's available, our friend Ian.
Who also
And
likes
I
Tron.
guess we're gonna kind of, yeah. So we're gonna do like an interesting kind of debate, because Matthew actually is not really a big fan of the Tron movies, whereas Ian and
I don't hate it, but it's just like I think they're just
Oh yeah,
pretty mediocre. But I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change if I rewatch it. Maybe it'll click.
for sure.
But yeah, only time
Well,
will
Tron
tell, I guess.
Legacy is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So we're definitely we're gonna talk about all things Tron. So yeah. I guess
yeah, we will. Thanks for listening, and we will see you guys next time.
yeah. Have a good week. I'll see you later.
Bye.